Hi, everybody. So, very excited to be here today, and I'm happy to see so many people are interested in AI searches. We are your hosts for the day. I am Emma. Emma Fulga. I was in digital marketing in a past life for about 7 years, and then I transitioned towards copywriting. I've been doing that since 2017. And sometime in 2023, I kind of saw a shift and things were moving fast. And anyway, I decided to found Decipher. I founded Decipher actually a year and a half ago. It was the end of 2023. And it was initially more copywriting and content strategy, but now over the past year, it's kind of morphed into copywriting meets optimizing for AI searches. And it's been great. I mean, I got a chance to work with a lot of cool clients and do a lot of cool projects. So it's exciting times. And now we're expanding to the UAE. So again, exciting. Not something I thought I would say a year ago, but here we are. Over to you.
And some people in here might know me, some don't. I know someone's coming from the marketing showcase as a sign up. So I'm Singh. I'm the CEO of Bobble Digital. I've been fortunate to work with two of the biggest agencies previously in the world, from Kara Dentsu and into marketing, working with national, local, and international clients. Been running Bobble Digital since 2017. I'm a big advocate of digital marketing education. I have my own personal brand, Mr. Bobble Official, which you can follow on LinkedIn or all social media, and I have my own podcast, Bobble Pod. I've known Emma for a while, sometime, and she reached out to me about her expense to UAE, and then we came up with this idea of talking about when AI meets SEO brands, really deliver. So, looking forward to sharing some more insights. So what do I want you to take from the session? This is probably one of my favorite slides to kind of like set the precedent for any presentation I do. If anyone's seen me speak before, I always say, what do I want you to take away? This isn't a sales pitch today. This is the whole idea is for us to help you educate. There's 5 things I want you to take away today. The first one is understanding the psychology of of the AI powered consumer. The second is, how this affects your content strategy and the changes you should be making. The third is the difference between SEO and AI search optimization. We'll be talking about new acronyms like AEO, so answer engine optimization, the back end of how all that works and what you should be doing and optimizing towards now, and how to pop up in every type of search, really, because search is beyond Google now. We've got ChatGPT, you've got Reddit, Quoras, YouTube, you've got different kind of AI platforms, LLMs that we're using as part of our everyday, and how do you appear in that and optimize your content towards that.
So, in a nutshell, we divided all this into 4 main pillars. So we're gonna be covering how AI is changing consumer behavior, the evolution of SEO versus AI-powered search, and how to optimize for every type of search. And then we'll have a Q&A at the very end. So I'm just gonna jump right in. How AI is changing consumer behavior. This is very exciting. So there's all this chatter. You've probably seen the narrative on LinkedIn that Google is dying, that SEO is dying. Nobody's dying. Google is still the Mac Daddy of search. 68% of online experiences begin with a search engine, and most of them come from Google. It processes 8.5 billion searches every day. It would actually take us over 300 years to perform as many searches as Google processes in one day. And most importantly, 83% of the global search market belongs to Google. So contrary to what many say, Google isn't dying. It's not dead. Neither is SEO. Google is adapting. Why? Because AI-powered search engines like ChatGPT, Gemini, and all the rest are changing how we do our searches, what content we see before visiting a site, but also our expectations. So if before it was we were kind of, I'm going to say educated, but we were kind of programmed to expect a series of links. You'd have to do your research. You'd have to open 10 tabs or how many tabs you want, go through all the content. Now it's all conversations. It's the whole new psychology of search is conversations. And to back it up, we found some numbers that were interesting. So 55.2 billion visits from April 24 to March 25 come from AI chatbot, is AI chatbot traffic, comes from AI chatbot traffic. Traditional searches, that's 1.83 trillion visits, but it's shrinking. The search volume today, again, it's still, Google is by far the leader. They process 14 billion searches a day, and ChatGPT only it's just ChatGPT, but still, to give you a sense, it processes 37.5 million searches a day. But everything is changing because different demographics are doing things differently now. Gen Z, for example, they're skipping Google altogether. They'll ask TikTok or ChatGPT before they ask Google anything. And I want to emphasize the word ask rather than search or any other term. The average search query now is at least 4 words because we're not typing keywords anymore. We're asking full questions. Voice search in itself is 35% of all Google searches. That means we're talking to our phones. We're not just giving them like orders, let's say, to find certain keywords. So Google still dominates, but the growth, that's all AI. So the shift is towards an answer first mentality. If consumers were opening tabs before, there was no other option. So now they're done. They're done opening 10 tabs. They're done scanning for blog posts like it's 2012. If the answer isn't served on a silver platter, most of us, I think, already will be out sometime soon. So we've entered the zero clicks era. The zero clicks era in numbers, and these are just a few numbers we found, but you'll see there are a lot of reports on this out there. 58.5% of Google searches in the US and 59.7% in the EU now end with 0 clicks. Search Engine Land, if you're familiar with it, and some of you have been doing SEO for a while now, reported that nearly 60% of searches in 24-25 didn't lead to an organic click. So people want answers. They don't want opinions anymore. And so we're sort of moving from prioritizing key metrics like click-through rate and volume of organic traffic to AI mentions. So we're moving from click-focused metrics to influence-focused metrics. What does that mean? Well, there's a good side and there's a bad side, like with everything. The good part is that by the time someone lands on your site, they're already 70% down the funnel. That means less searching for information and more decision making. AI tools now do all the heavy lifting. They summarize, they compare, they recommend your content in search results. So basically, when you appear in front of your consumer or your ideal client, you're already part of the short list before anyone clicks onto your website and starts basically the whole process of being familiarizing themselves with your brand. Now, the bad part of that is that the most important brand interactions now happen offsite. You don't see them at all. You can't track them. You can't optimize them. Well, you can optimize them, but you have a lot less control than you used to. But they still shape the sale. Also, if your content isn't AI ready, it just won't get picked. It won't pop up in any searches. So that means no summary, no visibility, and no shot at a conversion. If you'd like to think about, imagine this change like a trip to the market. Before, I mean, if you're like me and you like to talk to people at the supermarket or at the market, you go, "Hi, are these tomatoes fresh?" Whereas now, the change is, I understand your tomatoes are fresh. How much is a kilo? And can I pay by card? So people are still evaluating, they're still comparing, but they do that off page. They do that with ChatGPT, Gemini, or AI overviews and other types of AI tools. So by the time they hit your homepage, they've already asked 10 questions, read your 3 summaries, narrowed down their short list, and they're ready to make an action. So the shift is both a threat and an opportunity. On one hand, you lose some control, but on the other, you gain a nurtured lead. When someone reaches your site, they're not just browsing anymore, they're ready.
So the next stage is looking at the evolution of SEO, where is and where it's kind of going. So it starts with incomes, what we say, AI overview and AI mode. Sorry, next slide, Emma. So the shift is kind of inevitable in terms of like moving from searches to allowing Google to adapt work and faster. And what we mean by this, in terms of AI overview versus AI mode, next slide, please, Emma, is there's a big difference between the two. So the way we explain the two, sorry, next slide, Emma.
Next one, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a lag?
Yeah, sorry. AI overviews basically give you that concise summary of information that you want. So if you go into Google and you type in a specific question, you'll start seeing a lot more AI overviews come through in terms of top of results. AI mode is a little bit more different in terms of how it works. Is because if you consider Gemini, which we'll talk about shortly in a few slides, is it's that conversation with your chat GPT. It's that conversation with, let's say, when you talk about Siri or if you talk about Gemini. Google just released their new Pixel and it's got Gemini built in. So you kind of interface it like a chatbot like interface, but more based on like voice or conversational. What the impact is that the user's intent requires a lot without the actual initial click. So you're seeing a drop off on what we call traditional organic traffic. So if you're in your GA4 right now and you're seeing a drop off organic traffic, but you're not actually necessarily seeing a drop off in actual conversions or actual what a conversion action might be or key event in GA4, you might start seeing it coming more from direct pages or referrals, or you might start seeing it coming more from direct, where brands are finding you more elements. The other element to that is there's a lot more competition for visibility within the answer itself because there's only one. And we'll talk about the shift from the 10 blue clicks to where we are right now. So what do you need to do? You need to focus on the clarity of your content, the accuracy, how you structure answers within the content on your pages. We'll talk about this a bit further, but we create blogs to rank for specific keywords, but we want to focus now on actually answering specific questions. So I'm calling it the decline of 10 blue links. So when you go into Google, you used to see on the search result was your 10 top links that come through. You might see search ads, etc., then come through. So what you're doing is seeing less traffic from SERPs, if anyone doesn't understand SERPs, that's search engine result pages, and more visibility from other platforms like ChatGPT, YouTube, Reddit, Quora. And they're featuring within that actual first page more than anything else. So back then, you used to have the 10 clicks, the result pages, the classic list of the top 10 links that you'd get on page one. And as SEOs, as marketers, we'd want to be on page one. And ideally, you'd want to be in the top three of page one. Now it's kind of shifted. So that's all getting pushed down. Those organic 10 blue links you see are getting pushed down because you see AI overviews, featured snippets, or where people say people also asked. You've got video carousels. So if you've got a really good answer to a question, a YouTube video will pop up and it'll tell you to watch something from a certain period of time onwards. If you've obviously added an SRT file to that video, you'll get responses from like Quora, Reddit, and you get like Q&A summaries. So you have to broaden your strategy to consider more than just the landing page and Google itself. You've got to consider platforms like YouTube, ironically, also owned by Google, Reddit, ChatGPT, forums, and reviews. Visibility has to be referenced from just Google and your website. It has to be across multiple channels. So what we're seeing is the rise of structured data. And it's really important because we've achieved some obviously AI overviews and some ChatGPT results from blogs and articles and FAQs for some of our clients. So the key area you want to really focus on if you want to be featured in an AI summary is your schema, your product or content, service markup, FAQs. We feel that FAQs work quite well. That doesn't mean just go to every single page on your site and start adding an FAQ section. It doesn't work like that. You got to make sure that the content or the page or the service page in particular, like for example, with our own website as an agency, we're focusing on our key service pages where we're adding in FAQs to that. We're not adding FAQs to every single blog or article that we've put on our site. Why does it matter? Because the rich snippets you can get found in AI overviews, but more importantly, when we talked about statistics, 35% of search in Google comes from voice, you get that voice search answer result as well. What it means is you've got to apply that right schema.org tag to your pages, making sure that FAQs, product informations are clearly marked up within the content of the page in terms of how you structure. So the structure of the page, the structure of the content, and everything you do within the page changes. Predominantly, we would normally use SEO on pages to rank for specific keywords. Now we have to start adapting it to answer questions and focus on other elements so we can feature in the broaden area of what we just discussed, though. It's not just 10 links. We get the AI overview, we get the people also asked, we get the Quora reforms edits, we start appearing in places like ChatGPT. Next slide. So this is what I mean. the search engine result page is no longer the destination. Before, we all just used to focus on let's win the click from Google. We've already discussed in terms of statistics where 60% of all organic searches didn't have a click. You've got to start thinking omni-channel here with your visibility and knowledge graphs. Google's becoming like almost like a middleman, and I have a good example in a few slides in terms of where I'm going to explain how that works. It's not the final stop anymore. We talked about Gen Z, they exclude Google altogether and go directly to places like ChatGPT. So customers may get their answers directly on Google, but they're going to discover you more on places like ChatGPT, TikTok, LinkedIn, Reddit, and YouTube, different platforms. So that's why it's important to have that omni-channel approach to what you're doing. So align your content strategy, what we call AI training data, social discovery, and what we call knowledge graph optimization. So graph out, plan out where can this content also feature. We see the rise of video content, a lot more people doing podcasts and creating snippets, etc. These are things where you've got to start looking at where it's not just more written content, it's also more visual content that can feature and feature you in other areas where you can get that authority and link coming through from the site. So we're switching from what we call SEO to AEO, and there's a huge shift answering this. Whereas SEO focuses on ranking for a particular keyword, AEO, or answer engine optimization, we're calling it, is focused on being the answer that your ideal customer thinks. So you need to start putting yourself in the view of your customer in terms of what answers are they looking for in terms of to help them to do their role, do their job. So if it's a product that's going to help your consumer, if it's a service that's going to help a business, you need to start looking at answering questions in a natural language. They're expecting what we call direct, fast, trusted answers instantly. That's why people go to ChatGPT. I want an answer straight away. I want the information elements. So you've got to build content that answers specific user questions clearly. You've got to focus on building topic authority and trust. And you've got to structure your content for AI readability and extraction. So as Google right now, you get a crawl budget and it crawls your site and it starts ranking you in what we call the old blue links. The crawl budget is now also used for where you actually get featured in an AI overview as well. So when we have featured snippets, if you look at your Google Search Console, you might see featured snippets appear where you're in the map pack, where you're in images, etc., where you're in people also ask questions. The one thing it's missing right now is giving people visibility on how many AI overviews you've got. And we're expecting an update to come from Google and Google Search Console about that. So how are we actually going to visualize this in terms of what does it actually look like? So if you see the video on the left, the question was, what is the best AI tool for content? So we're asking a specific question to Google there to give you an example in terms of how it switched. So as that video plays, and I might ask Emma just to replay that video so that people can see it,
Yeah.
click on the play button. You see the AI overview straight away. You see videos come from YouTube instantly. And then you see the people also asked section come up. Then you see discussions from forums come up. And then you'll see the actual clear scope. Now, if you're doing Google Ads, you'll also see the paid ads appear as well at the top. So when I say that, the death of the like we're moving away from the 10 links, look at how much more is coming up before that our position one element comes up. Now that's not going to happen for every single search question that you put into Google that comes up with, but it kind of shows you how much space or where Google's going in terms of information, where it's coming from. This is what we mean by that omni-channel approach. You've got to adapt and optimize your content, not just for that little blue link click. You've got to make sure that you're adapting it for ChatGPT. So the image on the right, which was a different question, was top insurance technology consultant companies in the UK. Another search that you might actually put into actual Google, but been putting into ChatGPT. And you can see that the results that come back quickly in terms of information. Now, what you don't realize is it's actually crawling a lot. the structured data, your schema markups from your site in terms of where it features from that. And if you want to actually see where that's being tracked, you have to go into referrals and look at ChatGPT to see where the actual data is coming from. Because right now, when you go into GA4, you see direct, organic, you see social media, you see paid search, you see cross network, which is basically performance max campaigns, you see referrals and emails, etc. It's within the referral section, which is where you can actually deep dive and find whether your content or pages are being ranked or being crawled or indexed by ChatGPT or other platforms like Quora and Reddit, etc. So you can see the natural progression of SEO from 10 links to actually AI overviews, video snippets, people also ask, etc. And this is where SEO is transforming from SEO to answer engine optimization. And this all comes from the tool that is Gemini. So think of Gemini like Copilot. Because if you use Office 365 within your everyday business, you realize that Copilot is in your Word, PowerPoint, Excel, it's in your Teams, etc. It's fully integrated in terms of what you can do. And Gemini, which used to be Bard by Google, is the same thing. It's fully integrated into all of Google services, from Google Docs through to Google Cloud to Google Workspace, including platforms like Google Ads and GA4. Key capabilities that we found that it can do is it enhances that natural language and understanding. You've got advanced content creation automation that's coming from these platforms, and you've got improved analytics and optimization for like stuff like Google Ads around ad spend. So just to expand on this a little further, there's two key things you can do in Gemini in part of your SEO. And I'm going to talk about Google Ads here, even though this isn't a Google Ads topic. So you could streamline a lot of the creative process for like ad development. What I mean by that is like your headlines and descriptions, etc. But in the same way, you can still optimize the creative process for your H1, your URL, your paragraphing, your link building within your page content on your website as well. So the AI assist comes from, those automated asset generation in terms of like images through to actual H1, H2 tags. You can look at actionable insights from SEO because it's going to look at data sources like Search Console Cloud GA4. So it'll allow you to move from what I always say, from data insights to execution a lot quicker, because it's looking at multiple platforms of data and much, much quicker for you. So Gemini can be implemented in one specific way in terms of how we look at it. So don't get me wrong, the fundamentals of SEO are not going to change. And I always say there's three pillars of SEO, which is technical, your on page, and your authority in terms of links. So you will still need to do that as a basis. You can't just stop doing that and then just start focusing on AEO only and not have the basis in place. If you're not passing core web vitals in terms of making sure your site is, mobile first responsive and technically sound, then you're not going to rank on page one. And you're not even going to get these, AI overviews in the first place. You got to make sure that the pages you're building are focusing on the right keywords. And then within those keywords where you rank for, you need to start then optimizing for, answering specific questions and optimizing, paragraphs as opposed to the whole content. You want to feature quality informative content. So you want to make sure that actually your content is optimized to answer questions as well as, specific terminology and keywords. And you want to make sure you've still got that solid backlink profile. So the big relief is for SEOs doing their job properly, not much is going to change from the core principles, but you will have to adapt in terms of how you actually implement that. And the question comes down to zero click. So what does that look like in terms of zero click? This is where traffic has been dropping from GA4, where we're seeing in Search Console a lot more impressions, but not enough clicks. And the example I've given at previous talks, examples I've given at Elements is if you see the AI overview in the actual slide itself, I had an issue where I was doing a talk on basically tackling Google in a AI digital age, and I forgot my clicker for my PowerPoint presentation. I just thought to myself quickly, well, I can download something on my phone. So I typed in PowerPoint app clicker iPhone, and that was the AI overview that came through. What I did then was I quickly went onto my phone into the App Store, typed in the one that came up straight away, which was PowerPoint, and downloaded that onto my phone. That gave me a bit.ly link to go back to my desktop to download a desktop version of the platform. And I connected the two together and it was working. But during that whole process, one thing did not happen, which was I did not click on a link to go to any website to read the article directly because the AI overview gave me the information I needed anyway. I did not need to click on it. And if you look very, very closely, and obviously we'll share the slides afterwards, is after the first topic, there's a little link icon that you can see, but the link icon's very small and a lot of people miss it, especially when you consider that searches are more optimized towards mobile devices as they are desktop. So people aren't clicking on that. That's why 60% of searches haven't been tracked. That's why we talk about, when AI meets SEO, brands can grow. This becomes more of a branding approach to your marketing strategy than anything else because I still got my product. I still was able to deal with a question or query I had. But in GA4, you're not going to track that app download and desktop app download came from organic search. It's going to be that went directly to the landing page, and the attribution is going to go to the Apple App Store as someone searching it in the Apple App Store organically. So the question you're going to have is attribution monthly. And where does it come from or where does it sit? So you have to do the fundamentals of SEO. You have to start optimizing for AEO where you feature in this because your customers are still going to buy from you, but you're just not going to in the short term be able to track it. So you have to focus on, it as seeing it as more of a brand execution in the short term until we start seeing platforms like Search Console, where we start seeing how many AI overviews come through from that perspective. I hope that makes sense before I jump on to the next section, which is SEO versus AI powered search. So when we talk about SEO versus AI powered search is basically where we're kind of going with this. So it's search versus synthesis. Whereas traditional SEO relies on what we call ranking pages, AI kind of relies on extracting that meaning and answer in terms of what you want to get out of your content. So what that translates to is, I think you've jumped a slide, Emma.
Oh, sorry. No.
No, we're seeing something. So what it translates to is, whereas SEO was built for engines like Google, Bing, AEO, and answer engine optimization is built for like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Perplexity, and co. AI SEO is all about appearing in search results. AI is all about optimizing to become the answer itself. So you switch from indexing versus understanding. So it's not just keywords anymore. And you got to understand the sentiment, credibility, and context around what your ideal user is searching for. And you need to start prioritizing summarized, cited conversational content that Copilot, Gemini, Perplexity can start picking up as part of their AI overviews. So you can start featuring as those as part of like what we call the new rich snippets. So we talk about link building, and a lot of people in the industry talk about how link building is kind of like dead. It's going to matter less and less as time goes on. It's going to be less about, backlinking and more about credibility and citations and what we call AI generated answers. So Google hypothetically might be able to pick up that you're being featured in ChatGPT or you're featured in their AI Gemini, AI mode response and start giving you more authority than what a backlink would get you from a particular page. But also where you buy your backlinks from in terms of where they feature, are those pages also AI AEO optimized, not just SEO optimized in terms of the basics? So this creates what we call new trust signals that we want to really focus on. So you want to create what we call entity-based content, structured, frequently asked questions under type. You want to be up to date on content in terms of like what's happening right now, which is the most key focus. You want what we call author profiles. So one thing that we've built out with a new page on our new site that goes live in the next couple of months is I have my personal brand, Mr. Bobble, on podcast, and we're featuring that as a page on our site, so we can link into the podcast episodes across Spotify, Apple Podcast, can link in YouTube. Those kind of like signals that come through whilst Google crawls the site will also build authority in terms of answering specific questions. And because we're then placed on those platforms in terms of where the podcast is, it'll start building out what we call these neutral signals. So you have to start thinking broader than just backlinking in terms of where you're going to feature content, where can links come from outside of just going to building a direct link with a web page master, in terms of what we can do in terms of moving forward. And as Emma returns, I'm going to pass her back onto her.
Sorry. It was just too noisy. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So this is where Search Engine Optimization comes in. So it is a content strategy that focuses on optimizing your content to be the answer to a user's query. So it focuses on user intent clarity, the structured content, concise answer-ready formatting, the optimization, semantic relevance. All this is to say that the content needs to be coherent and answer questions. It just needs to answer questions. That's one of the most important things. And if we were to kind of make a parallel between SEO and AEO, their main focuses are now quite different. SEO is ranking web pages. AEO provides direct and structured answers in search results. The search behavior of the consumers, of the user, is different. We went from linear searches, static results. And remember a while back, if you didn't put in the right keywords, you wouldn't even get the right results. We've come a long way. Now it's with AEO, it's all asking question-based queries in Google or voice search. We went from a content strategy that is built around optimizing pages with backlinks, with keywords, with making sure that the H1s and H2s, we went from that to optimize for one clear question per section, concise and factual. We basically optimize paragraphs now rather than entire pages. Keywords, high volume keywords. SEO is all about exact or semantic match. Well, exact a while back, like I was saying before, and now AEO is all about long tail, question based, how to, what is, all conversational all the way. So the content format also went from long form pages. You had blog posts. Remember that it always changed, that Google recommends you have 1,000, over 2,000 words on a blog post. Then everything was very, very long, very, organized in big chunks of content. Now we're with AI, we're focusing on a Q&A format, FAQs, lists, feature snippets, bullet points. That is to say, both are necessary. I mean, it's not that SEO is the past and AEO is the future. You need to optimize for both now and from now on. But there are some things that are essential and some things that are a bit more outdated, even penalized. Essential is the quality of the content. That remains very important. It needs to answer real questions, both in content and in structure. It needs to be fast, mobile-ready websites, reputable backlinks, clear structure, schema markup, most of the things that Manny just mentioned. Outdated, no more keyword stuffing, no more link schemes, AI-generated content. Now, this is the tricky one because for a long time, I say a long time, but in the end, it's just been a few years. But at the beginning, there was no rumor about Google penalizing AI-generated content. But now in January, they came out and say that they're not going to ban you. They're not going to, I don't know, kick you off of Google, but they will give you a low scoring. If they find that, and they're crawling 50% of search results, if they find that it's AI-generated content, they will penalize your website. So the KPIs in AEO, sorry, it's difficult for me to say that, AEO era, have also changed, actually fundamentally. So if before 60% of searches, well, not before, if 60% of Google searches end with 0 clicks and AI answers everything in their platforms, then traffic volume, the KPI that was so important, which was traffic volume, now kind of shifts to brand visibility. If we used to look at CTRs all the time, now we focus on AI mentions. So using SEO tools to understand where you stand and have regular searches for your brands. That's one of the most important things. I'm surprised how many people don't haven't tried to go to ChatGPT and see what are the best software, or I don't know, whatever your company does, but do those searches. They're very important. So the mentality now is not about being on page one, like Manny mentioned. It's about being in the answers. So how do you optimize for every type of search in 2025 and beyond? Again, start with your own audit. Go to ChatGPT, Perplexity, whichever one you like. Put yourself in your ideal client's shoes and just think, what would they search for? What are they looking for? What solution are we providing? What problem am I solving? And ask the platform all these questions without mentioning your brand. Very important. Like, no questions of what does, in my case, Decipher do. No, obviously it's gonna know. Your brand will pop up, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for providing the answers to ideal clients, or users that aren't familiar with your brand. We want to come with the answer, right? So don't add your brand to the name. You'd be surprised how many times I've heard that. Oh yes, I appear in ChatGPT. Well, yes, because you're looking for your own brand, your own company. And most importantly, well, not most importantly, but it is worth trying, add your country or market at the end of the prompt, because just saying best software, accounting software firms, it might not be enough. And that doesn't mean you don't appear. That just means you're not a global brand. Also, do a proper audit. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The first step is, obviously you can think of certain things that you can ask, but you can't really think of all of them. So for SEO, SEMrush, Google Analytics, Ahrefs, whatever you prefer, try them. And for AI visibility, I mean, I recommend getspotlight.com, and you have a code there if you want to try it out for a couple of months or a year. You'll get a discount. This tool, I find that it's really good because it gives you a lot of visibility into what prompts my ideal client, or well, my clients are using, their competition, where it pops up. So I mean, it's quite comprehensive. And
Yeah, I just
then
want to highlight that. It's like the next thing in terms of like when we look at Google Ads, well, not Google Ads, Google is, we want to kind of feature in the people also ask questions. The trend and the change, what's going to happen in the next, 6 to 18 months is like, what's the prompt we want to be optimized
yeah,
for? So
yeah,
within ChatGPT. So in order to know the prompt, then a tool like Get
mm,
Spotlight's really good because it tells you actually what prompts around because we do keyword research and then content strategy around that. You're going to have to adapt, as we said, to actually answering questions in terms of part of your content strategy and where that fits. But the key element to that is, well, what prompts are people putting in, and what are the most relevant prompts that people put into platforms like ChatGPT, Grok, whether it's DeepSeek, and for you to appear in that as well, etc., and optimizing towards those prompts and answering questions related to that directly. So it leads perfectly into building what we call the hybrid content strategy. So you've got your traditional search, which is obviously core web vitals, your mobile first indexing, your keyword targeting. But for like voice search and assistance, you've got the conversational tone, your long tail Q&A content, your FAQs. And then for AI search, so we're in AI overviews of featuring platforms like ChatGPT, it's your schema markup, your semantic SEO, and then those credibility signals, which we talked about earlier. Moving from optimizing pages to what we just mentioned, optimizing paragraphs and snippets. Be very clear and concise with answering specific questions based on what prompts people are putting in to the actual website itself. And what that leads to is like technical optimization. So I just wanted to highlight this bit very, very quickly because technical SEO requires a lot of different aspects that we have to stay on top of. And there's traditional, then there's what we call the AEO technical view. So three key things to focus on is the schema.org tags, that author and entity linking, and making sure you got that first byte data enrichment. Whereas traditionally we would focus on-page optimization, keyword targeting. We're optimizing for voice search, conversational tone, long tail Q&A. We look at core web vitals, response to them, loading speeds. That's still going to be relevant because it's going to be key. But you also then need to start considering like citations, reviews, credibility signals on your site. And then from backlinking to what we call more structured data in terms of what plays well.
So a few mental notes. Something that most people don't know is that ChatGPT in particular pulls most of its results from Bing, not from Google. So if Bing can't find you, ChatGPT won't find you either. Well, that's true in a way, but it's also, I mean, what Mani's been saying about Quora and Reddit and all, and obviously that plays a big role as well. But just know that it doesn't pull its results from in the grand scheme of things. Not obviously it goes to Google as well, but most of its results are pulled from Bing. So aside from that, make sure you use consistent phrasing across platforms. Less creativity on this front, more consistency. Always make sure you answer with the same voice and across platforms, omni-channel SEO, like Mani said. So it's very important that all the answers, all the content you're optimizing, they need to be out there everywhere, because AI tools will start making connections between you and the results and the topics that you're optimizing for. And this is also very important still, trusted sources, Reddit threads, Wikipedia pages, academic citations, anything that is trusted sources.
So, summarize of key takeaways. Your content needs to be AI friendly. Make sure it's clear, well structured, credible. Use schema markup. Think beyond ranking. Focus on being cited for AI generated responses. But more importantly, your brand visibility might now begin and end on the SERP. That's it. Nothing else might happen, which makes tracking a lot more difficult. So one extra thing I want to highlight in terms of key takeaways was that traditional versus AEO element, which is on the next slide, please, Emma. So focus on rankings for pages as part of your traditional, obviously clicks from the top 10 links, keyword backlinks, consumer mentality, user explores links. They're traditional SEO. You still got to continue doing this because remember, AI overviews only kind of pay for 50% of searches right now. There's still that whole 50% that hasn't. It's not a full migration yet. This is going to take time, and there's a lot of businesses that need to, and pages that need to be adapted, and Google still only has an infinite amount of resources, and you only get an infinite amount of crawl budget. But start focusing on AI summaries. Look at that. 0 clicks means fewer clicks, but it means more brand visibility. And I get that that's the hardest thing to explain when you're an agency or you're an SEO, manager within a company. They're going to say, well, our clicks are going down, our organic search is going down from GA4. That means we're not getting as much visibility. You've got to start using tools maybe like Get Spotlight, and hopefully we get an update from Search Console around actually how many AI overs you got. 0 clicks does mean less clicks to your website, but it does mean increased brand visibility. And I always say use the example I've given in the slide before in terms of like people still get the response, it's just not being attributed, or that conversion event is just not going to organic search when actually it is in the background. Authority schema, and then make sure that your user gets the full answer in the SERP, not just part of the answer. Don't just give it a bit of the answer and just a few keywords and a few lines. Make sure you go into a bit more detail so you can be thought. And then my final thoughts are what you should do if I summarize it into 3 points, which is audit your content for AI visibility. That's what you should be doing now. You should be auditing your content on your site to understand which pages are answer worthy and can we start optimizing them now. Shift your strategy from just rankings to more relevance. Stop chasing rankings alone. They're going to become vanity metrics in the future in terms of like where you are in terms of position. Start optimizing for like credibility, context, and being trusted as the number trusted answer on the AI platform. And expand your SEO beyond Google. Google isn't the end and be all. We talked about how ChatGPT relies on Bing search, and it's a whole different platform, and Gen Z actually avoid Google altogether. So if you're targeting different audiences at different stages or different age groups or demographics, they're exploring different platforms like ChatGPT, like YouTube, like TikTok, like Reddit, like Quora, and that's where your structured data hubs are going to come into form. So stop just focusing on Google. Your SEO strategy should start including multiple other omni-channel platforms where you get the benefit and visibility of it beyond Google.
On my side, I just wanted to say I just wanted to put a lot of emphasis on how consumer habits are changing, and there's just no more patience for link browsing. People need to get their answers quick, so always have that in mind when you think about the content you put out there. And while Google still dominates the search space, the growth is all AI, as you've seen. Bear in mind the zero click era. I mean, we've already talked about this quite a lot, but I just wanted to put again emphasis on this: the shift from click focused metrics, going from CTRs and organic traffic to influence focused matrix and AI mentioned. So the good news is that when you do appear, very important, remember that that's why you need to make the effort and optimize for AI tools. When you do appear, you're in the short list. That is already a nurtured lead, so they'll be more likely to either buy whatever you're selling or contact you or whatever the CTA is. And the bad news is that you can't optimize. Well, you can optimize, but you can't really track as well as you could in the past. But there are tools for that. And we just wanted to finish up. Well, we did good on time. This is your chance if you want to get a SEO and an AEO audit for your company website. We can show you how deep AI rabbit hole goes. How you can just drop us an email at both emails, please, and we'll send you the presentation. So you'll have all that information in your email. And yeah, I think if you have any questions,
Yeah,
we're ready.
So we have recorded this, so people that have jumped in mid-session, you'll be able to watch a recording of it. And we'll be sending out the slides to anyone who's actually signed up to the event as well afterwards, which will come from both Emma and myself. So feel free to reply to us if you want to do that. I'd now like to open up to a Q&A from anyone. We have about 8 minutes left. So feel free to come off mute to type in a question for myself or Emma in the actual group chat. We do have a Q&A feature within Zoom. I can see there is one in there, but it's more Kate mentioned that she saw me at the marketing conference in Southampton. So thank you for that, Kate. So we'd like to at this stage just open up to any questions. If anyone wants to see something again or ask us to go through anything specifically again, feel free to come off mute or drop a message in the chat now. I'm not seeing anything come through yet. People could be typing. In general, just let us know your initial feedback of the talk, if you found it useful, if you found it helpful, and that way we know we can adapt, because this was our first test to see how this webinar went. We do have our plans and ideas to talk about other elements in specific silo to go into a bit more detail, because we can understand with only a limited amount of time and everybody only getting an hour for lunch, and we appreciate your time today, that we can only cover a certain amount of insights. It's all was being back in a classroom where people don't really Stephanie's got a question. Are there any tools that show AI mentions or prompts people use?
Yeah.
There are a few. I'll let Emma answer it first.
Well, it's let me go back to this slide. You can try this one. Get Spotlight. This one. And you can use this code to try it out. You'll have a discount for the first 2 months or the full first year if you wanna try it out. It's great because it gives you a really nice overview about how your brand, what your brand is, how your brand is showing up in AI searches. So it'll show you brand mentions, it will show you the topics, it will break it down by topics, by prompts. Each topic will have its own list of prompts. You can see your competitors, what they're doing. So it's very good. We use it a lot. Yeah, it's you can get everything from there, the mentions, everything.
I would also recommend phrase.io. I did a talk last year about supercharging your SEO with AI tools. It's available on our company YouTube channel, and the slides available on our website. And I talk about different AI tools that actually help with that one, Stephanie. But phrase.io is really good. The reason I say that is because there's a section in there that really breaks down that when you're optimizing towards certain keywords or content, it automatically starts scrolling what your competitors or what other people are doing in terms of the area, which is people also ask section, which is going to play a pivotal role as part of like your structured data in terms of how you optimize to get into AI overviews. So I would recommend a platform like phrase.io because it can give insights in terms of what content to write from a paragraph perspective as well, which is what we want you to do to feature on that one. I hope that helps, Stephanie. Arena has a question, which is if you're building a website from scratch, what are the first three things you do to set up a strong SEO AEO foundation? Well, the first thing I would do is focus on core web vitals. We've already talked about this in the talk in terms of the technical elements of it is really cool. Make sure that website is mobile first designed and optimized in terms of where it is. Make sure that it's not a clunky UX design so that your pages don't take ages to load. Make sure like your images and stuff still follow basic technical guidelines like images uploaded in WebP format, etc. But if you're building a new site, you've got the opportunity there to start structuring your page in terms of not just doing keyword research and then creating a content plan in terms of how that website should feature. Is like, actually, where can I implement an FAQ section? Where can Q&As be? Where can I actually give authority? Which paragraph of that content is actually answering a question related to that specific keyword that my potential customer might write to. So you'd have to spend more time in terms of the structure and organization of the actual I'd say start with your service pages or core product pages first and answer and focus on that first. So I would say make sure it's mobile first responsive. That's number one. Make sure that it's not clunky in terms of UX, it's simple and clean. And three, when you're optimizing the content for those pages for your new site, that you consider all the recommendations that are literally in this presentation for that new site build. It means that once your site's submitted and you submit your, sitemap to Google Search Console, you'll start getting crawled and hopefully start appearing for not just SEO best practices, but AEO best practices as well.
Structured data is very important here. Just wanted to say that real quickly. That's one of the things that AI tools, look for. That's how they know what is on your page. So make sure you add that for sure. But I mean, if you do the whole technical thing, like as Manny said, if you follow the structure of the deck, you'll see that in the presentation we mentioned all these, but structured data is particularly important. And content conversational, always make it conversational, even if I don't know what your industry you're in, but try to make it always think of what the answer should look like. Always think about the consumer, always think about the user first. So write your content thinking about it needs to be an answer. The content needs to be structured. Also, snippets, paragraphs. Don't write big chunks of content. Yeah.
Right. Oh, thank you. You're welcome, Rena.
Anytime.
Are there any other
Yeah.
questions? Andrew, Mitch Holmes, how many FAQ pages should be too many if I wanted to create one for my main areas of service? Volunteer opportunities. Would it be a better strategy to focus more on FAQs now than a blog post? Okay, so my advice here would be I'm just going to tell you what we're doing with our new site build, Andrew, so you get a better idea. So 6 key services from strategy, SEO, PPC, etc. So within the PPC section, at the bottom, we're adding to that page particularly a detailed FAQ, but it's going to be UX designed in a way where it's going to be a drop down, but it's going to be question and then really structured answer at the bottom. But also, as what we're going to do as part of certain blogs is we're going to be starting to add in certain questions within the blog so they can actually be answered as part of that article. So I wouldn't say just create a page that says FAQs. The issue you're going to have there is that you're going to have one page that answers all these questions, but Google's going to just crawl that one individual page. You're still forgetting, the URL and the relevancy to keywords. You're forgetting the actual title of the paid services. So if you have the page that is, when you say page, which is volunteer opportunities, that's the core keyword the page should be ranking for as like a standard link on the site. However, in that page, you should be looking at opportunities where at the bottom where you can answer some specific FAQs around volunteer opportunities, but within the context, also try and like answer a question within the actual one of the paragraphs of the actual blog or service page itself, if possible. So that's what I would try to do instead of just creating loads of FAQ pages, because that's not going to work. And then you'll start getting, it's not going to give the level of relevancy and authority signals that you need to Google. Start adding FAQs where you can, not always necessary, to pages or service pages of relevance where you can answer a question. Try and find out what those questions are first and see if they can feature. So when we talk about moving from just, content strategy around rankings, it's content strategy as a hybrid model to start looking at what questions are people asking around particular services, and can I feature that in that existing page to build more authority and relevancy.
Those questions can actually be prompts. If you use one of these tools to see what prompts are, those are the perfect questions in your FAQ. On our side, we also have an FAQ on our homepage, just because when we started doing this optimization for AI, which was just maybe a year ago, it was quite new. So it made sense on the homepage to add that because people might not be familiar with the concept. But yeah. Okay, we see
Yeah, and
we have to
another
go
question
out
from
on.
Christian, which I think is on the money, is especially for SME, well, local businesses. The question is, are there any tips you'd recommend for local SEO clients? I'm focused on getting them in the map pack, but I think getting them in an area would be important moving forward too. Yes, actually, it is important to start optimizing for local businesses on actual getting them in AI overviews. The benefit there is we talked about AI mode as well, where we're actually talking about, people not just using, ChatGPT, but actually having a conversation with like Gemini on Pixel or Siri or Google, or I'm not going to say the one with A because I've got one right in front of me and she'll start going off. But you go into ChatGPT and actually do a voice prompt as opposed to elements. So when people are looking for recommendations near me, for example, let's say if it's a restaurant or elements, you want to make sure you come into the 0-click position. So we also talked about not just featuring in an AI overview, but featuring in that 0-click, so you benefit from voice search as well, considering 35% of traffic, in terms of in terms of results happen on mobile. So yeah, I would recommend to you, Christian, is start optimizing localized content for that, because AI overview is not just going to provide responses based on broad searches. It looks at your IP in terms of local searches. You'll see this automatically already when you're looking for a search. It pulls up in the map pack of what's close to you. So if you achieve that map pack SERP feature or rich snippet, you want to make sure that you actually try and again an AI overview so that you become that in the voice search and every other element that comes close to it. That's going to give your local competitors a bit of a competitive advantage to every other local business out there. All right. Thank you, everybody. We know it's
Thank
just
you.
after 1 o'clock. Thank you so much. We'll be sharing the slides to everyone and emailing them out to everyone who signed up. So thank you for giving us the time today on a Thursday afternoon. Thank you for the feedback. We really do hope you found that session insightful. We'll ask for a bit more feedback in an email, and then we'll ask what it is you want to learn more from, and we can turn these into more regular sessions for people, almost like a little lunch and learn session, if people like.